Konnichiwa! I'm pretty happy with how my games collection is going at the moment, but one area I'm not happy with is my Nintendo collection. I've only got about 120 games across all platforms. So this year, I've decided to focus my Nintendo collecting on the Nintendo Entertainment System. Game on! There was a time when my Nintendo collection was over 500 games, but when I went to university, I had to sell those games to pay for beer. Well, now it's time for me to build my Nintendo collection up again. I'm going to start with the Nintendo Entertainment System. So in this video, we're going to be looking at everything we need to know about to collect for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Before we jump into the video, if you're new to the channel and you love retro gaming and gaming, then why not consider subscribing to the Retro Gamer Boy community? And if you enjoy the video, why not consider leaving a comment below?
Now you're playing with power.
Let's start with the basics. Hardware. There are 5 models of the Nintendo Entertainment System: the European NES, the US NES, the Famicom, which is the Japanese Nintendo Entertainment System, and there are 2 top loaders. There's the NES 101 and there's the Famicom HVC 101. Now, whether we're collecting to collect all Nintendo Entertainment System games or just the games that we like, it's cool to know some fun facts about how many games there actually are. In the US, they released 677 games. In Europe, they released 712, and in Japan, they released a whopping 1,053 games. Now, the NES also had a number of peripherals, and more than just the standard zapper. Now, before Sony brought us the de facto standard and form factors for joypads, there was actually the NES Max. Now, the NES Max came with a thumb slider, which was called the Cycloid, and it came with 2 turbo buttons as well. There was also the NES Advantage, which was a controller ahead of its time. It came with a joystick, 2 turbo buttons, a slow motion button, and it had the ability to connect into both controller ports so that you could swap between player 1 and player 2. And if that wasn't enough, the controller also featured in Ghostbusters 2, and it was used to control the Statue of Liberty.
Pilot controls are ready.
All right, it's getting late. It's almost midnight. Let's go, Venkman.
There is the very unique and rare Arkanoid controller, which used an analog dial and a single button to control the game, and it was only available for Arkanoid and Chase HQ. Now, Konami also jumped onto the peripheral bandwagon with the Laser Scope. Now, the Laser Scope was a headset with a mic, and it worked in a similar way to the Zapper, except that you would shout fire when you wanted to shoot your gun. It also came with an eyepiece with a crosshair overlay.
The Power Glove for your NES. Now you and the games are one. Everything else is child's play.
Now, the Power Pad was a gaming mat that supported several NES sporting titles, and players had to have great speed, timing, and memory to really master the peripheral. Games like Dance Dance Revolution would take future generations of this peripheral to the mass market, with unit sales in the millions. To control the roll and rocker, you had to stand on the base unit and then tilt your body in different directions to control the game. The peripheral was discontinued after there was a lawsuit claiming that the device didn't work.
U-Force for Nintendo. U-Force. U-Force. Nothing but you, and the game.
With the U-Force power field, nothing comes between you and the game.
U-Force.
One of the only celebrity-endorsed peripherals was the Speedboard. NASCAR driver Carl Petty's Speedboard allowed players to insert their joypad into the Speedboard and then turn it into a touchpad. Unfortunately though, the peripheral was discontinued after a news report about a small child who used the Speedboard to torture his pet. The NES 4-Score is a multi-tap for the Nintendo Entertainment System. It allows players to switch between 2 and 4 players, and it also has a turbo button for button A and button B, and you can select to have one or both buttons on turbo at the same time.
Will you be the one to witness the birth of the incredible Nintendo Entertainment System? The one to play with Rob, the extraordinary video robot, batteries not included. He helps you tackle even the toughest challenge. Will you be the first to raise the incredibly accurate Zapper and play games like Duck Hunt or action-packed Hogan's Alley and high-flying Kung Fu, each sold separately? Will you be the one to experience the Nintendo Entertainment System? Comes with Rob, Zapper, Control Deck, 2 controllers, Gyromite, and Duck Hunt.
The NES Zapper is one of the most well-known peripherals on the system. Originally released in grey, Nintendo had to change the colour to orange after fears that the grey version looked too much like a real gun. If you want to pick up a NES Zapper today, then make sure you got a CRTV, because the gun won't work with modern TVs. Now, the price of NES games have stayed relatively reasonable. If you want to buy them boxed with instructions, then that's obviously going to bump the price up. But there are some games out there that will cost you a lot of money. Let's take a look. First up, we have two of the most expensive game cartridges that you can buy for the Nintendo Entertainment System. There's the 1990 Nintendo World Championship Gold Edition cartridge and the 1990 Nintendo World Championship Grey cartridge. Now, the Nintendo World Championship Grey cartridge was actually the cartridge that was used during the Nintendo tournament. Each of the finalists got hold of one of these cartridges as a prize, and so there are 90 of these knocking about somewhere. Now, the Nintendo World Championship Gold Edition cartridge is actually rarer than the Grey Label cartridge used during the tournament. Nintendo Power ran a promotion where one grand prize winner would win one of these cartridges. Nintendo Power ended up giving out an additional 25 copies to runners-up, which means there are 26 copies out there in the world. Now, the Gold Edition cartridge goes for between $25,000 and $50,000, and this is based on eBay prices, and the Grey cartridges have been selling between $8,000 and $25,000. If you've got a spare $1,000 to $2,000 lying about, you can pick up Little Samson. The Flintstones, The Surprise at Dinosaur Peak, goes for between $800 and $1,325. It's largely assumed that the Flintstones never actually made it to the shop shelves, but rather it was a blockbuster rental game. This made the game a limited run, which is pushing the price up. You can pick Panic Restaurant up for between $500 and $1,300, and to be honest, the box art alone is worth it. Bonk's Adventure was actually the mascot for the TurboGrafx-16, but after the console's failed sales, the game was ported over to the NES, and whilst you can pick up a TurboGrafx-16 version for not much at all, the NES version goes for between $400 and $2,000. If you've got $400 to $800 lying around, you can pick up Power Blade 2. Zombie Nation sees you flying around as a samurai head who is trying to save the USA from an alien who's turned everyone into zombies. How this game didn't sell more, I don't know. Nowadays, it can cost you between $370 and $680. You can pick Dragon Fighter up for between $300 and $530. Bubble Bobble Part 2 goes for a whopping $300 to $500. Now, you may not want to pick up original hardware. If that's the case, then there are a number of options for you. First up, there's the NES Mini Classic. For those who don't want to really collect the video games and just want an all-in-one package of great gaming from the Nintendo Entertainment System. When the NES Mini Classic was first released, prices skyrocketed due to demand. But since then, prices have come down and you can pick it up for its original retail price. But hurry, as Nintendo have said, they're no longer going to continue making the console. Now, if the NES Mini Classic is too expensive for you, you can always get one of these. This is a rip-off system, and it has about 300 NES games on it, and you can pick it up for about $40. If you still want to collect the original games, but can't be bothered with the original hardware, or don't want the faff of having to set up your original hardware all the time, then there's the Retron 5. Now, the Retron 5 supports Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advanced, NES, SNES, Genesis, Mega Drive, Famicom and Super Famicom. The Retron 5 also uses software emulation, which means there's a ton of other options that you can utilize with your games. From Retrobit, there's a Super Retro Trio, which supports the NES, SNES, Mega Drive, and Genesis. And unlike the Retron 5, this is hardware emulation rather than software emulation. Now, if you're really serious about your third-party hardware solutions for the NES, then you can import from Japan the Retro Freak, and it supports, hang on a minute, the Famicom, NES, SNES, Super Famicom, Mega Drive, Genesis, Master System with the adapter, PC Engine, TurboGrafx-16, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, Super Graphics, and it has an SD card for emulated games. The console is super configurable and has firmware updates adding new features each month. So there's a ton of peripherals we can get for our consoles, there's a ton of hardware options that we got for our Nintendo Entertainment System, and we've seen what the most expensive games are that we can buy for it. But what are the best games that we should buy for it? Well, I trawled around the internet, searched on YouTube, and built up a list of people's favourite games, and have put them into a top 10. At number 10, we have Bionic Commando, which you can pick up for about £30. At number 9, Manic Mansion, which you can pick up for about £40. At number 8, Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse. That's going to cost you £70. At number 7, The Legend of Zelda, which will set you back £100. At number 6, Mega Man 2, which you can pick up for about £30. At number 5, you can pick up Super Mario Brothers for £25. At number 4, you can pick up Tetris Boxed for £20. At number 3, it's Kirby's Adventure, and if you want to pick that up boxed, it's going to set you back £40. Bubble Bobble 2 may cost you hundreds of dollars, but the original won't. If you want to pick that up boxed, it will only cost you £30 and is at number 2. And the number 1 game that NES collectors recommend that you pick up for your collection is Mario 3. And boxed, this will only set you back £20. So that top 10 list should give us some great games to start off our collection. Now I've got about 26 games in my collection. My favourite by far is my Legend of Zelda copy that Miyamoto signed when he visited London. So that's my most favourite NES game at the moment. And then up here, some games that I really love playing. Obviously Super Mario 3 that we just saw. North and South, that's a great game. What else we got? Solar Jetman, that's a brilliant game actually. The artwork on that's fantastic. Actually, I got quite a few great games here. Swords and Serpents, it's a good one. What else we got? Snake's Revenge. So this is the game that wasn't made by the Fox team. Fax and Ado. So I did a 60-second review, so you can look that up of the game. Fax and Ado is a great role-playing game. Link, the second one, I actually like the second Link, The Adventure of Link, that's very cool. Mario 2, Donkey Kong, I got McDonald's Land. Yep, I got McDonald's Land. Rad Racer, let me put these back up here. Rad Racer is the 3D game that Nintendo brought out, for their headset, which was only released in Japan. And then for Europe and the US, they released this version, which comes with the standard red and blue glasses. But that's a great 3D game there. And I think Rad Racer is actually on the World Championship cartridge as well, as one of the challenges. Track and Field, that's a good one. Tiny Toons, that's brilliant. Shadowgate, if you ever get a chance to pick up Shadowgate, that's a fantastic game. Love Shadowgate. If you follow me on Instagram, you would have noticed that a couple of weeks ago I picked up Hook. So this is Hook. This is the US version of Hook. So yeah, there's that. What else we got? Bayou Billy, which is super hard. Black Manta. Oh, this box art is great. I don't want these games to fall over. So that's Black Manta. The box art on this is amazing. The game's pretty good as well. The graphics in the game are pretty good. So definitely worth picking up that, I think. Quantum Fighter is good. And then I've got Chip and Dale, and then the Simpsons game. So Bart Simpson versus the world, and then the Simpsons, Bart versus the Space Mutants. And those are all my NES games that I've got at the moment. And so this year I'm going to spend a lot of my time looking around thrift shops, going to shows, looking out on eBay for games that I can build out my collection. Really want to get some of the Mega Mans in there. I had Mega Man 1 and 2 and they were brilliant. So I want to pick those up again. Want to pick up some of the more obscure role-playing games that came out, and also some of the platform games. I think for me, when I look back on the things that I enjoyed on the NES, platform games were right up there. Now, if you are going to start collecting NES games and you're going to collect box NES games, then I definitely recommend you get some of these plastic protectors here. They cost about £1.99 each, and they're definitely worth it. So I've got all of my NES games now in these protectors, and they look great. Even some of the more tattier boxes that I had, put them in these plastic cases here, and they look fantastic. They look almost new. But definitely invest in some of these to protect the cardboard boxes for the NES games. And that's it for this show. If you're a big fan of Nintendo, and especially if you're a big fan of Zelda, then why not check out my video over here where I go through all of the Zelda games that the Nintendo didn't make. And again, if you're a retro gaming fan and you love retro gaming goodness, then why not consider subscribing by clicking on my little pixel head below.